What's up, guys? It's the Diabetic Burger. If you don't know me, my name is Robert. I am 22 years old. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes roughly 2 months ago. Unfortunately, I was able to find help very quickly, and for about a month now, I have been able to attain essentially non-diabetic normal blood sugars. Today, we are going to talk about my diet, what I eat, why I eat it, and why it works. Pretty much all the information about my diet I've gotten out of this book. I follow what the book says. It is slightly outdated, so I have done some experimentation with foods that he does not mention in this book. But for the most part, I eat very similar to what they suggest in this book. Dr. Bernstein's Diabetes Solution. If you are diabetic and you do not have it, I highly suggest you go get it. It's very helpful. It's like a reference book. If you have a question, you can go back through, look at it. It tells you so much information. It's on Amazon. I think it's like 20 bucks. So I highly recommend go get the book. It will make things a lot easier. Now, first, let's talk about why I'm working so hard to normalize blood sugars into a non-diabetic range. All the complications that come from diabetes, all blood circulatory issues like eyesight issues down the road, possible toes, fingers, limb amputation, things like that we do not want to happen down the road. Those things are caused by elevated blood sugars. Now, at what level is it considered elevated blood sugars? Well, unfortunately, it's not what the endocrinologist tells you. 180 milligrams per deciliter is not healthy. Even 150 milligrams per deciliter is not healthy. It's a fairly general rule. Anything under 140 is starting to get into a normal-ish range after a meal, but fasting blood sugar level should be ideally 83 milligrams per deciliter. If you see the hashtag let me be 83, that is where the hashtag comes from. I try and keep my blood sugar between 75 and 95 milligrams per deciliter. Do I always do that? No. I'll pop up a screenshot of my Dexcom right here. This is my current average blood sugar. I'm waiting on one in the mail. I had one fail on me and I didn't have a spare. So that is why I don't have a Dexcom on currently. But that is why I work so hard to control my blood sugars, because I do not want the long-term complications, and I don't want you guys to have them either. Nobody wants anybody to have these long-term complications. The endocrinologist will tell you that it's okay to be between 70 and 180 milligrams per deciliter 70% of the time, and that is a horrible range that they give you. I understand I'm just some kid telling you that it's a bad range, but if you do research, actual research not based off of what the endocrinologists say, you will find pretty quickly that elevated blood sugars are very unhealthy and damaging in the long term. So now that is why I eat the diet I will eat, because I want to attain normal blood sugars. Now let's talk about what I eat and why it works. So this diet is based off of a low carbohydrate diet. Now, why do we want to do a low carbohydrate diet as diabetics? Most all carbohydrates spike our blood sugars regardless of if you're diabetic or not. But as diabetics, we cannot control those blood sugar spikes like a non-diabetic can. But why can't I just have the carbohydrates that I want and take the insulin for those carbohydrates? Now, in theory, it does sound like it works. However, carbohydrates vary in how they affect your blood sugar. And when you have a large amount of carbohydrates, you have a large amount of insulin, and that leaves very big error for either staying high or having a very severe hypoglycemic episode, which is low blood sugar, and we do not want that. I had low blood sugars when I was first learning how to dose. It is not fun, but I have never had a super severe low where it's just crashing down and I can't control it. And that is because I don't take a large amount of insulin, because I'm not eating a large amount of carbohydrates. I'm not even sure for 70 grams of carbohydrates how much insulin you would need to take, and you eat the 70 grams of carbohydrate, and for some reason it doesn't spike you like it typically does, or it's a different type of carbohydrate. And I believe that is why the endocrinologists say you can be in such a high range, is because if you do eat the diet that they suggest, it's very hard to not have hypoglycemic episodes. And so that's, I think, why they suggest to keep it higher. But higher blood sugars create long-term complications. So this is how I look at it. I would rather eat a high protein, moderate fat, low carbohydrate diet and attain essentially normal blood sugars and not have the diabetic complications down the road. I don't want to lose eyesight. I don't want to lose toes. I don't want to lose fingers. I don't want to have any of those problems. So I would rather eat that high protein, moderate fat, low carbohydrate diet than eat the typical standard American diet, and the diet that the American Diabetes Association and endocrinologists suggest. That diet does not keep you in normal blood sugar ranges, and those high blood sugars cause problems down the road. Some of this might be changing your mindset. You might have to sacrifice a little bit now in order for down the road to have a better life, because if you continue to live with high blood sugars now, it will cause problems down the road. Now, if you already have some of these problems, he talks about in the book here that possibly some of them are reversible. I don't know for sure, but again, please go get this book, guys. Please go get this book. Dr. Bernstein's diabetes solution. If you guys want to work with a doctor that uses this method and wants you to have non-diabetic blood sugars, please comment down below. I'll give you guys some suggestions towards one that I use. He has helped me tremendously. I'm big into weightlifting. I had already tracked my calories, tracked my protein, things like that. So this was not new territory for me. If you guys have never tracked your calories, you've never tracked protein or anything like that, it will be difficult at first, but I promise you, the more you do it, the easier it gets and the better you get at it. I highly recommend MyFitnessPal for tracking everything. There's tons of videos out there on how to use it, but you will need to track protein and carbohydrates specifically. I don't worry too much about the fat as long as I am not eating too many calories. So what does a day look like for me in terms of eating? So I wake up really early. I usually wake up around 5 a.m. I go to the gym around 5:45. I don't have anything before that besides pre-workout. Pre-workout does not spike my blood sugar. I do have to take insulin before weightlifting, which I will make a separate video on. Stressful, strenuous exercise raises blood sugar, so that is why I have to dose insulin before my weightlifting session. So once I get back from the gym, usually I am in a fairly good range. Once in a while, my blood sugar will be going down slightly, but regardless of if it's going down or if it's in a good range, I have something in the 10 to 15 grams of protein mark. It's typically a beef stick or beef jerky, or it can be protein powder. It can be, I have these little Quest peanut butter cups that are about 11 grams of protein and only 1 gram of net carb. So something like that, something that does not have a lot of carbohydrates. Ideally, it only has protein and fat in it. So I eat that right after I get home from the gym. Then for my lunch, it's not really a lunch. I kind of have it anywhere between 9:30 and 11. I have a pretty big meal containing 90 grams of protein and 5 to 15 grams of carbohydrates. None of the carbohydrates are fast-acting carbohydrates. What is a fast-acting carbohydrate? Sugar, bread, milk, fruit, potatoes, rice, things like that are fast-acting carbohydrates. An example of a non-fast-acting carbohydrate, vegetables such as zucchini, broccoli, cauliflower. Let me read some out of this book. Asparagus, celery, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, eggplant, spinach, those sort of things. I take 2 units of Novolin R insulin, which is a regular acting insulin. The reason for that is because Humalog is too fast acting for the protein meals that I have. Novolin is a slower acting insulin that matches the rise that protein causes in blood sugar. So if I dose correctly, which I don't always, but when I do, I pretty much have a flat blood sugar in the 80s during 1, 2, 3, 4 hours after the meal. It stays nice and flat if I dose correctly. Now, my endocrinologist tells me I need to eat more carbohydrates. You need carbohydrates to survive. You need sugar to survive. And that's true to a point. You do need sugar to survive, but your body produces sugar by itself. You do not need added sugar to survive. Once again, I know I'm just a kid behind a camera telling you this, but the guy that wrote this book is a doctor. He's had type 1 diabetes for 80 years. I believe he's 90 years old now. He still works out. He's still active because he has attained normal blood sugars. For dinner, I have the same thing in terms of amount of protein and amount of carbohydrates. I obviously have different foods. Sometimes I'll have chicken, sometimes I'll have steak, or I'll have ground beef, or turkey, or fish, whatever. But the protein number and the carbohydrate number stays almost the same. Just for consistency, it makes it a lot easier versus having a small meal and then a really big meal and trying to figure those things out. So same thing for dinner. And then usually somewhere between 7:30 and 9 o'clock, I'll have a snack. Sometimes I'll have some ice cream, Rebel ice cream, which does not spike your blood sugar. It is very low in net carbohydrate, very high in fat, so it is high calorie, but it does not spike your blood sugar. So I'll have some ice cream, or I'll have some Quest peanut butter cups, or I'll have some beef sticks, something like that, usually ranging between, once again, 10 to 20 grams of protein, something like that, under 5 grams of net carbohydrates. And when I dose correctly and I follow what I have set out for my meals, I can attain essentially normal blood sugars all day long, between 75 and 95 milligrams per deciliter. I'm only 2 months into type 1 diabetes. I'm making these videos because I want you guys to have normal blood sugars so that you don't have long-term complications down the road. Now, I know this may be a big jump for some of you, but find some people that will support you, your spouse, your parents, your family, somebody that will help you along this journey to help you avoid these long-term complications. That is why I'm making these videos, so that you guys can have a reference to look back. You don't always have to look at this book. This book does not reach enough people. So that's why I'm making these videos, to try and reach as many people as possible. Share my story, share my mistakes, share my learnings, share how I do this, and I hope in turn I can learn from you guys can learn from me, and we can all avoid those complications down the road. If you guys found this helpful at all, please subscribe. Please send it to a friend that is diabetic. Please like the video. Find me on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at the Diabetic Burger. That's where I post all my short form content. I do also have short form content on YouTube Shorts, but all the long term content that I post will be here on my YouTube. If you guys are watching this and you have video ideas, please comment them down below. What do you guys struggle with? What do you guys want help with? Things like that. And I hope to see you guys in the next one.